Every Friday on Seattle Now, we break down the week's news. This week, Seattle knows how to party, but boy, we left behind a lot of trash at the Seahawks Super Bowl parade.
If I do produce trash, I'm going to carry it with me.
You're
Absolutely.
that gal.
Yeah, no question. Like, for as long as I need to. I'm a trash gal. Did you see me?
Hear that and more on Seattle Now, wherever you get your podcasts.
For the first time ever, cities across Mexico, Canada, and the United States will be sharing the world's most viewed sporting event.
Soccer will be taking center stage in Seattle over the next couple of years.
The FIFA Men's World Cup.
A chance for this city to showcase itself and how strong a soccer culture we have here in the biggest World Cup in history.
Visit Seattle anticipating that the city could generate $929 million in economic activity.
This summer, 6 matches will be played in Seattle, and that means billions of eyes will be on the games taking place downtown at Lumen Field. Hosting events like the Olympics and the World Cup are seen as an honor, but sports economists will tell you the cost of hosting these games isn't always worth the reward. I'm Joshua McNichols, and this is Booming, a podcast about the economic forces shaping our lives here in the Pacific Northwest. Today, the World Cup is coming to Seattle. Will it be an economic win for the city? That's coming up.
Me? I love coaching. Now, I'm going to say this again, just so you didn't think it was a mistake the first time I said it. For me, success is not about the wins and losses. It's about helping these young fellas be the best versions of themselves on and off the field.
So as a reporter, I go to a lot of press events, and these are times when public officials make announcements about progress on, some project or other. And at almost every one of these that I've attended in the last couple of years, someone has mentioned the World Cup. Like, we have to have this done by the time the World Cup happens in 2026. So people have been planning for this for a long time. It's a big deal. I mean, across 6 matches, the World Cup games and festivities are expected to net Seattle close to $1 billion. That's the payoff, but there are big costs involved too. Last year, Washington lawmakers approved $45 million in funding to enhance security and beautification and transportation ahead of the World Cup. In total, all the host cities are expected to spend hundreds of millions in preparation. And that's just the price tag. The logistical challenge of accommodating the expected number of tourists attending these games will be unprecedented, bigger than 2023's MLB All-Star Game, bigger than last summer's Club World Cup, and comparable to the hundreds of thousands of people who attended this month's Super Bowl parade. Preparing for this scale of event and making sure the economic boons of hosting it are spread through the city fairly is no easy task. It's something Lynnette Buffington has been thinking about a lot. Lynnette is the chief of staff for the Seattle Metro Chamber of Commerce, and her group has developed a small business playbook to help Seattle business owners know what to expect when hordes of soccer fans descend on the city. I recently caught up with her to get a better idea of how Seattle's businesses are preparing for this summer's matches and what we can learn from the city's largest events so far. Lynnette, let's start with the big numbers. Organizers say that the World Cup's going to bring 750,000 visitors and pump nearly $1 billion into King County. Can you paint a picture for us? Like, what does that actually look like?
So 750,000 visitors obviously won't come in one day, but imagine if they did. Imagine that would double the population of Seattle in one day. But the reality is everything is going to have a surge to it in terms of folks in businesses, folks in hotels. We will feel the strain of capacity in many different ways, but we will also feel a lot of celebration and have a lot of exposure to it. So that economic impact you've talked about is 750,000 people, $929 million of economic impact for King County over just the 6 matches. $100 million in direct state and local tax revenue. That's a significant number. And then supporting over 20,000 jobs, close to 21,000 jobs.
not everybody's coming on the same day. So, like, as you're walking around, the average street in Seattle, what might you expect to see? How might it feel different?
Yeah, well, you're going to see folks using an app that the local organizing committee or our host committee here have developed that's a little Pokemon Go-ish. There's going to be a gamification of this app that will guide people from everywhere from the stadium to the CID to Capitol Hill and kind of winding through all the way to Seattle Center. So you're going to see a real digitally savvy group of people looking in their phones. You're going to see gatherings of these nations in pre-identified spots for their own celebration. You're going to see just the surge of tourists visiting all of our icons. You're going to experience probably more concentrated traffic or higher levels of traffic, not only on our freeways, but within our public transit system as well. We can expect just a lot of cultural celebration, even away from the stadium districts. Although the stadium districts, the Alliance for Pioneer Square area, SoDo BIA, or just the SoDo area, and the CID do expect to have some of the most concentrated impact and opportunity during that time.
Yeah. So, we heard this big number of $920 million coming into the region, but the cities in the Seattle metro area are spending a lot, too, to get ready. Sports economists have studied events like this for decades, and they keep finding the same thing. They say host cities spend more than they earn. Why should Seattle be any different?
That's a good question. Well, one, I think I don't have a full picture of our full spending across the federal, state, and local level, but I think what we're looking at here is also a statewide impact. A smart thing that the host committee has done is spread out the celebratory opportunities across the state so that there's more access. So maybe that intensive demand in one city is dissipated a little bit across the state in these fan zones so that expenditure doesn't follow just on one municipality, for example. So what they've done is a very strategic way to spread the impacts, spread the tax revenue opportunities, but also be really responsible with the cost of these opportunities, of these big games and these mega events.
Huh. At the Chamber of Commerce, you represent a wide range of businesses, from the biggest ones like Amazon at the top to some little shops with just a few employees at the small end. I like to take each of these one at a time. So starting with the biggest companies, how do Seattle's biggest companies benefit from the World Cup being here?
Some of the early data I saw was 2 billion sets of eyeballs will be on Seattle, and many of those will be for the first time. So Seattle has an opportunity to be a star, and that works for greater business attraction, talent attraction. It will be during the summer, our sweetest spot of the year where we look just the prettiest. So it will do a great thing to attract ancillary employers, talent, and just general business attraction. For the smaller businesses, the opportunity is great, especially in the hospitality sector. So that's going to be your food and beverage, your hotels, your tourism industry. Of course, those are going to benefit deeply. So if I'm a gelato cart that stands up down on the waterfront, great opportunity. I need to order a lot of gelato, or maybe buy some more bikes with, coolers on them. So they can expect to see high demand. We do expect kind of a surge in friction, right? Surge in opportunities, sales, customers, all those things. And the friction comes to inventory, mobility, access, transportation, those type of things. So we're telling folks to plan for both surge and friction. And I can say that probably our biggest employers will deal with that, and our smallest employers will deal with that as well.
You mentioned the benefits that could fall on smaller businesses, obviously restaurants. If you're a gelato cart right by Lumen Field, yeah, that's going to help you, or on the waterfront. But if you're a restaurant that's in another neighborhood that's not near Lumen Field, or that's not near any of these events, how should these sorts of businesses think about this? They may not see an increase in foot traffic from this.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start at the center around Lumen, and then or what will be called Seattle Stadium during the games. It will have a new name for that short period of time, and then kind of talk about that radiating impact. So, of course, in the downtown corridor from the stadium to Seattle Center, we are going to have lots of people checking out our most iconic attractions, businesses, and things like that. Then the local organizing committee created this app that I talked about that's gamified, but it has what's called the Unity Loop on it. I'm speaking just from previews. It will guide folks, if they follow the Unity Loop, through the CID, up to Capitol Hill, back to downtown, and around. So it's going to connect people to places that maybe the general tourist wouldn't naturally go to, but it's going to gamify it. It's going to create kind of mini tours and things like that. And when I say tours, like a concentration of sites to see in a neighborhood. So imagine Fry Art Museum or something like that. So that is starting to radiate around where people traditionally congregate. With limited seats available in the stadium, not everybody that comes here can go to the games. They're here for the vibes. They're here for the fun. They're here for the celebration. So there will be activations to celebrate the games, to celebrate watching the games, to celebrate the culture of the nations that are here, to celebrate neighborhoods and business districts. And so what we did with the small business playbook we released was talk about how to prepare for that flexibility, prepare for that surge, how to kind of not let this be by chance, but working with neighboring organizations, neighboring businesses to create an opportunity for your regulars, for your residents.
Yeah, I've been looking at this playbook. There's some fascinating stuff in there. Like, for example, international visitors sometimes operate on different clocks. So businesses might want to keep unusual hours. Someone could be looking for a meal at 2 a.m. Or businesses farther from the games could offer shuttles to the game. And you don't have to be a bar to offer a watch party. Like even a bookstore could host one. And then there's this part that really caught my eye where it mentions that there could be some scams around. So businesses need to train staff on recognizing counterfeit bills. But I want to drill down on the Chinatown International District for a minute. You've mentioned the CID a couple times, and it's right there close to the stadium. But in the past, businesses there say they didn't benefit from large sports events like you think. I heard about this from State Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos when we were walking through the neighborhood last summer.
We have had, particularly on big game days or like when Taylor Swift was in town and the All-Star game, people are just running right through the International District. And so this is a community that is often overlooked.
What's the plan to make sure this overlooked neighborhood actually benefits this time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that question has been asked a lot. People walking by your business, does it help? And so a lot of what we're talking about, that foot traffic doesn't always turn into sales. So there has to be an intentional strategy to collect visitors to the local businesses through wayfinding and programming and incentives. So some of the things we put in the playbook were informed by the CID and other stadium area business associations. So we took a lot of that feedback from their experiences. So we did in the playbook a series of case studies ranging from Taylor Swift to the MLB All-Star Game, and looking even at other cities like when Detroit hosted the NFL Draft, or the legacy of the Atlanta 1996 Olympics. We looked at those case studies, what was working for businesses and what wasn't working. So there's acknowledgement of the most commonly referenced missed opportunity was MLB All-Star Game. But we referenced the lessons learned from that. But in the playbook, we wanted to acknowledge that, again, this foot traffic doesn't always directly correlate to sales. So there has to be some collaboration with other businesses, creating incentives, creating sales and promotional incentives and things like that. And we created this playbook, and then in partnership, all of those districts that I just referenced, those business districts, also were able to hire for a period of time a sports economy specialist or coordinator type person that is really tasked with connecting to that business community about what is going to happen with the World Cup and making sure that the playbook we've created is in their hands and they're able to utilize it and start to work together. So some of the, lessons learned from the past have really created an excellent outreach system and an ability to engage with the businesses.
I did reach out to the Seattle Chinatown International District Preservation and Development Authority, and they told me that one thing that was making this situation different was that organizers reached out to them much earlier than in the case of those other two major events that, didn't bring in any money for them. So they seemed very appreciative of that.
Yeah, we started that work in the summer and probably had 70 meetings getting feedback and made sure people felt informed and resourced. But again, like any small business, none of this just kind of happens. You have to actively engage in it, and we're trying to provide as many tools as possible to folks. We also know some businesses don't want to engage. It's just not their business model. And we definitely make sure that folks are getting those kind of resources too. They understand transportation plans, street closures, busy times, slow times, all of those things. We're recognizing that not every business wants to open the doors to all the people that are here, or it inhibits their business operations. So we've looked at it from both angles.
But what about people who aren't soccer fans at all? The ones who think, World Cup, and they think, great, now I can't get anywhere near downtown. And there might be people who are just like, you know what, it's not for me. And it sounds like a lot of crowds. And what's in it for them?
I mean, it may sound a little abstract, but when we have this benefit of visitors and eyes on us, there's long-term impact to our tax revenue, be it retail, hotels, transportation. It supports jobs. And if we host well, it means people will come back later, and there's the opportunities for tourism attractions. I also encourage folks not to be so concerned about the crowds that they leave their favorite places behind, that they abandon them. We've seen with other large events in Washington State and in other case studies that locals may stop going to their favorite coffee shop or their favorite sandwich shop because they're scared of the crowds. And that isn't the right thing to do either. That continue to support your local small business during this time. There's always confusing messaging about what the reality of these disruptions might be. So please don't abandon your favorite place. They need you during this time just as well.
You mentioned tax revenue before. I know Seattle and many other cities that will be hosting celebrations like these have dealt with budget shortages in recent years. The World Cup won't fix that, but I'm wondering how much it'll help. What is Seattle? What is the county? What do these cities get out of this financially?
Well, they'll generate their lodging taxes or transportation usage taxes or sales tax and things like that. And many of those taxes have very specific uses, designated uses, but it will fill coffers that are strained, right? It will. Is it going to fix all the problems? Maybe not, but it should provide some level of relief to things that are strained or reinforce areas that are already stretched thin.
Okay, so what's the lasting benefit? When the games are over and fans go home, what do we keep?
Sure. I think that question's been asked in the comparison to the World's Fair. We built Seattle Center. We built the Space Needle. There's no room to build any of that kind of stuff right now. And so what we care about is how our people feel on the other side of this, and how the impact of this, and again, it sounds abstract, but how the impact of these games builds our future. And so, it is going to have repeat tourism. If the folks didn't come here for the games, they're going to see us on TV and be deeply intrigued by those beautiful scenic shots that play over, Elliott Bay and things like that. We'll get credibility to host major events, and not just sporting events, big events. We'll gain credibility on the global stage to do these things. And it sounds superficial, but it helps with our awareness. Operational systems will get better. Resilience planning, like I talked about, will get better. I mean, this is what we care so deeply about at the Chamber, is the business community's health. And we think that will be a legacy for these games for businesses that do engage.
Well, Lynnette, thank you so much for talking with us today.
I appreciate it too. This is my first KUOW podcast, so I'm excited.
That's it for Booming. Thanks so much for listening. Hey, if you have a question about the economy that's just been burning a hole in your mind, you can email it to us at booming@kuow.org, or you can leave us a voicemail at 206 888-221-7158. And if you are donating money to the show, thank you so much. We could not do it without you. You can donate too. Just go to kuow.org/booming. And thank you. Our producers are Lucy Suchek and Alec Cowan. Our editor is Carol Smith. Booming is co-hosted by Monica Nicholsberg and me, Joshua McNichols. And we will see you next time.
Everything is expensive in Seattle. But when it comes to restaurants, I got a lot of tricks and tips up my sleeve to help diners eat well in this city. I'm Ton Venn, host of Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW, part of the NPR network. I'll share about the latest buzz in the Seattle food scene, like the hottest openings and the best bites that are worth your money. Listen now to Seattle Eats on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.